Well, hello everyone and welcome. This is the February Business Systems class, and what I'm basically doing is a quick summary of what we discussed. The first thing we did, I'm trying to solve an issue with balancing not overrunning you guys with too much email because I know you're all busy, but still getting enough information from you so that I can customize these discussions for you. But I did get a call from someone before the class kind of, well, I'm not prepared, so should I even join? And I guess one thing I want to reassure you is my purpose is to facilitate a discussion that you're going to get a lot of value out of, whether you're prepared with the topic or not. And so I don't want you to hold back from jumping on the call just because maybe you didn't look at whatever it is that we're going to be talking about, because you'll be able to fill in with your thoughts just based on your experiences. So in this class, nobody really, came sent anything to me in advance, but we did talk about how we were going to discuss Right People, Right Seats from the book Traction. And the other thing I wanted to just let people know is I have Karen sending you an email every week to tell you what classes you're in as a reminder, and I do send out calendar reminders. I send it out at the end of January for all of February classes. Now, some people did not get their calendar invites. I never know who's getting them and who isn't getting them, so I'm still trying to work that out, but my goal is to not over-inundate you with email yet, make it very easy for you to jump on the call and make it very clear for you to know when your calls are. And I feel like we're still struggling with that a little bit, so any feedback that you want to give me on that, please do. So what we ended up doing was a conversation circle, and we talked about from Traction, Right People, Right Seats, and also another thing that was brought in from the people section of Traction is the org chart. So the visionary, the integrator, and then the three main boxes, that functional boxes that he has here: sales, marketing, operations, and finance. And we had some really great discussion. So what I really want to do is tell you from my memory what some of the discussions were. So the first point of discussion that we had was integrator versus visionary. And we all talked about where we saw ourselves. Were we more the integrator? Were we more the visionary? But we also talked about problems. So we talked about how in some companies the visionary is making it difficult on the rest of the team because they're throwing a lot of ideas out, which is making it difficult for the team to get their work done. And then there are other situations where it's kind of the opposite. There's someone who's an integrator that's really focused on daily operations, and they don't have a visionary that's really pulling them out to the big picture enough. So we talked about how these roles get fleshed out. We talked about various situations that we knew of and the problems that come up with the visionary versus the integrator when one person has to play both roles, when there are people that fit both roles, but maybe they don't know it or they don't want to be in those roles, and how you talk to them and how you change things. But also we gave examples of when it works really well. And then in this Right People, Right Seats, we had a really interesting conversation about values versus functional fit. So if you really think about it, in the People Analyzer, he has you list the company values and rate people on whether or not they're a good fit for the company. And based on that, you can tell whether someone's a good cultural fit. And in the People Analyzer, what you're really evaluating is whether someone's a good functional fit. So do they fit the actual seat or the role that you want to put them in? And a couple people were talking about how they hired people based on culture fit and then later evolved a role for them that fit around their personality. And then there were a few of us that kind of admitted that we sort of secretly agreed to that. We actually liked doing it that way. And so some people will look at roles as functions and then try to put people into the functions. And, sometimes that works really well, especially when you have to make sure that you have people with the right skill sets. And then other people approach it more from who are the right people, and then sort of trust that in that mix of right people, there'll be enough talent to get everything done, and then they'll work it around the people. So we had a nice discussion about that, and we included one of our participants talked about the model that they have where they actually take the values and make a list of behaviors that support each values and have incorporated that into how they performance review people. And you can look at the behaviors that they exhibit and rate them on whether or not they exhibit those behaviors, and that gives them a score of how well they're living up to the corporate values. So then the performance evaluation has a cultural or values fit component as well as a functional component as to how well you're performing. And I've seen lots of companies do that recently. So that was just a very interesting discussion. A lot of people talked about how that values fit is sometimes more important than the functional fit, but that doesn't mean that the functional fit isn't important. And I've also seen situations where you have people that are a values fit that don't have the capability to do certain functions. And then those functions don't get done well because nobody in the company is really good at it and nobody knows what they don't know. And so then the company flounders. So there are a lot of issues. There were no right answers, but lots of really interesting discussion. We talked about what should we discuss next time, and a few requests came up. One was for org charts. So for those of you that have org charts in your company, on the next call, please bring them. Bring org charts that you've experienced in various companies you've worked for. What we're going to do is take a look at the different org charts, the different ways to organize things. Maybe we'll look at an example of a matrix management versus regular management, and we'll talk about what works and what doesn't work. And then there was another request for standard operating procedures. So how do people put the SOPs in place? How do we set that up? And how do you use that to onboard new hires? So kind of sharing stories on that. And then there was one book recommendation, although we don't actually have the name of the book, but it's something like Second in Command, Eliminating the Noise, and we were sort of joking about that. So it's kind of a book that will help an integrator support a visionary. And then we were joking about how it would also help the integrator protect some of the other people from the visionary. So it could go either way. So we were talking about that as well. So that's sort of a summary of our discussion. I want to encourage you to participate as often as you can on these calls. The discussions are really great. And just bring yourselves and your brains. If you have something you can bring to prepare, that's good, because that makes it easier for me to plan something relevant that's actually related to something that you're experiencing right now. But if you didn't have the time, I still would rather have you come onto the call than not to be on the call with us, because the more of us that we have on the phone, the richer our discussions are. So that's it for this summary. I hope to see you on the next class, and have fun with this stuff.